I'm going to apologize in advance for the length of this video. The original video I'll be looking at today is a 22-minute and 23-second long video response to an additional video, which is 30 minutes and 15 seconds. So very likely my video is also going to be quite long. Today I'll be looking at a video by the Justicar entitled We Should All Be Feminists Response Part 1. I will not be looking at Part 2, which addresses Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's speech on feminism from last year. That said, let's dive in, shall we?
So in this video I'm going to be talking about a TEDx talk, which is just another talk that's been given under that banner that is going a long way in the service of ruining the credibility of TED Talks. In particular, I'm going to address a video about why we should all be feminists, a talk given by Nigerian author Chimamanda Adichie, and it's titled Why We Should All Be Feminists. As everyone who watches this will know, who knows me, I'm going to be responding by saying not only why should we not all be feminists, but in addition to that, why no one should be a feminist. Feminism is an ideology that wants to argue that everything about the world is wrong, and we shouldn't actually change very much of it. And I'll try to explain what I mean by that. In particular, it is the notion that women are getting the short end of the stick, and that the only people who are responsible for the ones who need to step up to the plate to fix that are, of course, not the fully able, fully competent, fully independent women. Naturally, it's all the men.
Really? Oh, well, I'm certainly glad that you cleared that up. Here I was under the assumption that feminism was the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities, effectively being judged not by their gender, but by what they have to offer as a person. Huh. Feminism is actually an ideology of economic, political, and social equality between sexes. She even touches on not just how women are treated, but also how men are treated and how they are raised.
We must raise our daughters differently. We must also raise our sons differently. We do a great disservice to boys in how we raise them. We stifle the humanity of boys. We define masculinity in a very narrow way. Masculinity becomes this hard, small cage, and we put boys inside the cage. We teach boys to be afraid of fear. We teach boys to be afraid of weakness, of vulnerability. We teach them to mask their true selves because they have to be, in Nigeria speak, hard man.
Furthermore, it's only the men who are expected to stand up and do anything to further feminist goals, huh? Sir, I think the fact that you are making commentary on a video about a female feminist addressing the topic would beg to differ. Additionally, I'm going to take the step that this guy didn't and actually edit in Miss Adichie's original video and speech so you can all see what he's addressing.
I was impressed with the particular theatrics of the man who found us a parking spot that evening.
This is where she's talking about there's this like elaborate theatrical presentation that people do with respect to getting people's luggage in and out of cars, whatever. It's probably a local custom. I don't know anything about it, but that's what it is.
Good thing you provided a link to the original video, but unfortunately did not note at what points in the video you were commenting on, because she does somewhat touch on that, but I suppose that's neither here nor there.
So as we were leaving, I decided to give him a tip. I opened my bag, put my hand inside my bag, brought out my money that I had earned from doing my work, and I gave it to the man. And he, this man who was very grateful and very happy, took the money from me, looked across at Louis, and said, "Thank you, sir."
Which, by the way, she talks about some things that are really good observations, and I do agree that they should be dealt with. The only difference between her and me on that point is whose responsibility it is to deal with it. In her universe, it's not any woman who has to deal with it. It's men who have to deal with it. My response is if you don't like the conditions that surround your life, you have some responsibility to do something to change it. And by that, I don't mean getting up on a stage and complaining.
First of all, if she believed it was not a woman's job to deal with what they perceive to be oppression or wrongful treatment based on their gender, then why is she making note of this? If it's not her place to do so in her own mind, then she wouldn't be complaining about it. Secondly, by your logic, anyone who gets up on stage and does a speech is not actively working towards fixing the problem. See, that doesn't really work, because when it comes to feminism and the equal treatment of the sexes, a lot of it boils down to spreading tolerance and information about the subject. You can't have equal treatment between the sexes if not all sexes are on board with equal treatment. The fact that she's up on stage and sharing her empirical knowledge to an audience means that she is spreading that knowledge to others. She is actively making note of it and encouraging others to change. Whether they listen to her or not is their own choice, but you can't say that she believes it's not her gender's role to do something about it, as you are doing commentary on a video where she's doing something about it.
So anyway, her male compatriot.
Louis looked at me, surprised, and asked, "Why is he thanking me? I didn't give him the money." Then I saw realization dawn on Louis' face. The man believed that whatever money I had ultimately come from Louis. Because Louis is a man. And so, girls grew up to be women.
This is a jump going to a much later part of the video. I'm going to return to this money exchange thing when we get to the waiter conversation.
Remind me again, why were you perfectly capable of editing together the audio in the order that you wanted to present it, but couldn't edit in the original video alongside your commentary? It would certainly make this a lot easier to follow rather than having you cut the audio off every few seconds to interject about what part we're supposed to be listening to.
Who cannot say they have desire. And so, girls grow up to be women who cannot say they have desire. They grow up to be women who silence themselves.
Listen to that. That is central to the problem with feminism. It is women doing this to themselves. It is the responsibility of women to stop doing whatever they don't like to themselves.
You didn't play the entirety of that clip. Let's go back and listen to a little more of that argument, shall we?
Recently, a young woman was gang raped in a university in Nigeria. I think some of us know about that. And the response of many young Nigerians, both male and female, was something along the lines of this. Yes, rape is wrong. But what is a girl doing in a room with 4 boys? Now, if we can forget the horrible inhumanity of that response, these Nigerians have been raised to think of women as inherently guilty. And they've been raised to expect so little of men that the idea of men as savage beings without any control is somehow acceptable. We teach girls shame. Close your legs, cover yourself. We make them feel as though by being born female, they're already guilty of something. And so, girls grow up to be women who cannot say they have desire. They grow up to be women who silence themselves.
Now, since I'm very into psychology and sociology and all that jazz, I'm going to explain something to you, which I can safely say from experience is sadly true. When you are raised a certain way through your childhood, you are conditioned to think and believe as you have been taught. If you are growing up and people are constantly shaming you for things and praising you for others, then, surprise, surprise, you're going to do less of what you've been shamed for and more of what you've been praised for. If a person is shamed for revealing parts of their body, then they're going to reveal less parts of their body. And if they are praised for virginity, they will cling to that trait. It is not the woman's fault she has grown up and been conditioned to think a certain way. That is nobody's fault except perhaps the society or people that brought her up. But if a person finds that there is something about themselves or their life that they do not like, then they, no matter who they are, should strive to change it. That is not always easy, however, because when you are taught certain things at a very young age, it becomes ingrained into you. It's like a bad habit. I happen to have 2 very bad habits, biting my nails and picking at my skin when I'm nervous. They are traits I developed at a young age and stuck to during troubling times in my social life. I still do it today. My arms are raw and disgusting and scarred. My nails grow wide because I stopped them from growing long. But you know what? It's not an easy habit to break. Very few habits are. Telling a person who has grown up for who knows how many years thinking one thing to immediately think differently or, God forbid, the opposite of that thought pattern is just impractical. Human beings do not work like that. Miss Adichie was not implying that it's male responsibility to tell women that what they can and cannot be. She's saying that there should not be a set defined space for what a man or woman should or should not be other than themselves. Furthermore, considering you claim that she's basically saying women do this to themselves in this part, then by that logic, in the part of the argument that you cut out, where she talks about how society view men as inherently beastly and incapable of controlling themselves, Well, you guys do that to yourselves. It's not our fault we think of you that way. You do it to yourselves.
It's not my responsibility because I have a dick to go around the world telling women what they need to be like.
Oh, well, it's a good thing it's a man up on that stage spouting all this stuff instead of a woman. Now, if it were a woman, then that would entirely defeat the purpose of your point there, wouldn't it? Huh. Furthermore, it's not about telling women what they should be. It's about telling them it's okay to be what they want to be. Feminism is about equality between the sexes. If one gender is being told by another gender what they should be, then that's not exactly equal treatment.
Women, the same as men, grow up and they'll have certain interests and certain things that don't hold an interest for them. And it's on them to pursue those honestly and openly, irrespective of what they think other people might want. There's something to be said for social expectations. There's also something to be said for ignoring them. If you really care about something, ignore the social expectations. However, you have to accept the consequences that go with it. Namely, when you start deviating very far from whatever customs happen to be, you become a less attractive, and I don't mean that sexually, I mean it in a whole host of different ways. I don't mean it exclusively sexy, in an exclusively sexual way. You become less attractive to the people around you. That is a choice you get to make.
That's what she's been saying! She has been going on about how women should have ambition, that they should strive for success, and not have themselves be defined by archaic social laws. Except, unlike you, she implies that a person should not be vilified for taking this route. You're saying that they should accept the consequences, but there shouldn't be consequences in the first place. That was the point of the argument. That is the centered focus about why people should all be feminists in this stupid speech, so those social standards do not impede people.
One of the problems with feminism is it wants everything in the world to be given to them, and for any choice they make to have not a single negative outcome. That is, they want to eat their cake and still have their cake. I'm sorry, if you eat the cake, you don't still get to have the cake on the table.
No, it's not that they expect not to get any negative feedback for their choices. It's that said negative feedback should not come at them solely based on what their gender is. A man should not be berated for not liking sports because he's a man. A woman should not be berated for not liking makeup because she's a woman. A man should not be taught that without power and money he's not a real man. A woman should not be taught to be subjugated or just accept things because she's a woman. And if you want a little proof from the original video he's commenting on that this is actually a topic of focus...
The problem with gender is that it prescribes how we should be, rather than recognizing how we are. Now imagine how much happier we would be, how much freer to be our true individual selves if we didn't have the weight of gender expectations.
Also, you play with this cake metaphor for far too long.
They grow up women who cannot say what they truly think. And they grow up, and this is the worst thing we do to girls, they grow up to be women who have turned pretense into an art form.
I love the way that you say it's something that we've done to girls. I don't do this to girls.
Oh, well, goody for you, but she never said that. I watched the video. At no point in said video did she state that it was the fault of men that women have grown up thinking like this. She explicitly states that it's a product of upbringing. It's a product of social norms. The women are raised like that by their parents, whether they be male or female, and molded through societal standards for what women should and should not be like.
Maybe where you live, there's this big thing where they, the infamous they people, you know what they say, all those they people who run everything.
She is rolling out experiences from her own life, from growing up in Nigeria. Good for you, you're not a dick to women. That doesn't mean that everybody thinks like you, and if you're unaware of how they think or act in a place she's referring to, then you really have no ground to stand on in trying to rebuke her claims purely through your own experiences.
Due to girls. I don't know, I don't live there. I can't speak for the rest of the world. The difference between you and me is I don't pretend to.
I'm sorry, do I need to rewind the video to where you just went on about how you don't do this to girls and blah blah blah? No, we all get the point? Good.
But it's interesting who's going to be swept up in that we. It's going to be, as you noted earlier, if you're going to be honest anyway, that women are more than half of the population. It's going to be mostly women who are doing it.
Well then, good thing the video is entitled, We Should All Be Feminists. Yeah, you hear that? It sounded... Oh, it's the sound of we, not referring exclusively to males, but to the populace as a whole. So yes, of course, women are included in that too.
And again, I'm just going to point out, not a problem for me. Or not a particular problem for me, any more than I think that it should be the case that you have some baseline rules, all the obvious ones, don't cross the street without looking, those kinds of things, and then tell the people, look, here's the way the society works, here's what's considered normal, here's what's considered not normal, if you want to get along with more people, you have to fall into the norm, otherwise not. Either one comes with consequences, one of which might require silencing your inner monologue a little bit. That might be uncomfortable for you. If it's so uncomfortable, then you have to go to being outside the norm, in which case you have to accept that you're going to alienate a lot of people. Pick your poison. The universe is not created to serve exclusively you and your own private, petty interests.
Don't cross the street without looking is common knowledge because it pertains to the well-being of a person. If you cross the street and you don't check for cars, you could be struck and die. This comparison doesn't work when the opposing example is something that is based off of gender and can be taught. A person could fail to teach their child to look before crossing the street, and when the child fails to do so, they are injured. A person could fail to teach their child that girls are supposed to be quiet and reserved and perpetually pure, and what would happen? Is someone going to spontaneously explode because a social law was not imposed on a child? No. Your comparison is sorely lacking here. I've already gone on about how consequences for these choices should not be present because of gender-dictated social stereotypes, so I won't repeat myself on that one.
Make your decisions, bear the consequences, but do it with a little bit of dignity and a little bit of pride, or at the very least, don't try to whine too much about it.
Which is why I made this video. The tentacle of hypocrisy, not again!
And at the very, very least, don't go blaming everyone else for the choices you make.
Extension on that note. Don't blame anyone else for the choices you make. Blame those who taught you for raising you improperly. Then blame yourself if you choose not to strive and grow and evolve past what you acknowledge to be a personality imperfection. I say strive because, again, habits are difficult to break.
Sometimes still feel very vulnerable in the face of gender expectations.
By the way, all you're doing here is making an observation about the ordinary level of social offenses is the greatest one that you can commit, failing to live up to other people's expectations. That is the root and cause of disappointment. Deal with it. You make some decisions. If you want to do things some things in a particular way that is not the local custom, you just have to accept that it's going to have people looking at you slightly askance.
So when I was 15 and my father offhandedly implied that he would kick me out of the house at the age of 16 if I did not immediately change my ways and conform to his ideals of a perfect daughter, I just should have dealt with it. Lovely. Don't get me wrong. I do feel that there are certain things in your life that you should accept and move on, but when it's something thrust upon you for what you have absolutely no control over and typically cannot change, that being your gender, then no. You should not be pressured to deal with it. The it implied should not be there in the first place. Not getting equal pay? Deal with it. Emasculated because you like the color pink? Deal with it. Bullied because you're a tomboy or a tomgirl? Deal with it. Excluded from activities because of your gender? Deal with it. There are instances where deal with it simply doesn't work, and feminism is basically meant to address those instances and stop them from happening. And don't you even think of getting all uppity, oh, well, you can change your gender nowadays, her. If a person feels that they are in their proper gender and body, then they shouldn't have to change it because some asshole won't give them the same rights as another gender.
And, by the way, for people who might want to ask me where I draw the line, I draw the line here where I draw the line pretty much anywhere. Physical violence. If it's something short of physical violence, it's not really a great problem for me, and I don't have a great deal of interest in intervening on behalf of other people.
Oh, well, let me just revise my list then. Not getting equal pay? Deal with it. Emasculated because you like the color pink? Deal with it. Bully because you're a tomboy or a tomgirl? Deal with it. And no, bullying doesn't have to involve fists flying, not in this day and age. Excluded from activities because of your gender? Deal with it. Well, that list didn't change much at all.
And by physical violence, I don't mean it has to actually... The fist doesn't actually have to have started flying yet. I mean, there's a lead up to it where it's starting to get to that. And you can intervene there too. But if it's just people expressing disapproval, you have to tolerate quite a bit of that. I learned...
See, here's a novel concept, and I know this might seem shocking to you, but people don't have to tolerate that. At all. Freedom of expression gives you the freedom to say whatever you want, sure, but it does not also give you the freedom to have everyone listen to what you have to say. If I don't like what a person is saying, I have every right to tell them that I think they're wrong and not give them the time of day. So no, you don't have to tolerate that. Just like you don't have to tolerate my opinion and what I have to say, neither does anyone else have to tolerate the opinion or expressions of another. Suck it up.
I learned this lesson very young in life. A friend of mine, a woman, we were out and some people had said some sideways things to her, and I, the same as I would have done at the time and no longer do for any of my friends, is I stood up and said, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then afterwards, she pulled me up to the side and she's, you know, hey, look, I appreciate what you're trying to do. I understand where it comes from. But the moment that you intervene on my behalf, all that says to the people who I was getting ready to go toe-to-toe with is that I'm not able to handle it. So I appreciate that you care that much, but in the future, don't ever stand up for me. Let me do that myself. Let me make that choice. And if it's a fight I want to fight, let me do it on my own terms, whether I win or lose. Let me make that choice. And if it's a fight I want to fight, let me do it on my own terms, whether I win or lose. And again, so long as the line is drawn at the physical violence stage, I respect that.
So you give an example about a woman who did not expect a male, let me emphasize that, a male, the gender with a dick, to stand up for her and fight on her behalf. You're going to emphasize a point where you've stated that feminists expect you to get up and change things for them without having to do anything themselves by making note of a woman who, in your life, did the exact opposite. Huh.
And that was important for me. I was quite young at the time. Important for me to have figured out. It is the denial of a person's agency to intervene on their behalf when they're fully capable of doing it, but elect not to. And I presume that people pick now that I'm an adult, I presume that people pick and choose their own battles. Once again, putting violence off to the side. And on that proviso, it is the height of arrogance for me to think that it's my place to override their decision to either not or to pursue a particular line of discourse with people that they have a disagreement with.
Is it also the height of your arrogance to assume that the speaker is referring to only males when they state the problems women face in the world, implying that males are only to blame and that women should not be expected to fight for feminist beliefs? The answer is yes.
I don't care. I love it. I don't care.
Whatever expectations the world has, you can't meet it for all people. And you just have to accept that some people are going to treat you in ways that you don't like. It is either important enough to you to stand up in your own right for your own cause, or it isn't. And if it's not that important to you, you have no right whatever to expect or demand or request that it be that important to me. I'm going to respect your decision in thinking that it is an unimportant state of affairs.
She is on stage talking about the problem. How is this not important to her? How is she not actively speaking up against it? Oh my God.
The first time I taught a writing class in graduate school, I was worried. I wasn't worried about the material I would teach because I was well prepared and I was going to teach what I enjoyed teaching. Instead, I was worried about what to wear. I wanted to be taken seriously. I knew that because I was female, I would automatically have to prove my worth.
The next bit he talks about, I agree with half of it. See if you can guess which half.
To prove my worth.
Again, it's not because you have a vagina that you have to prove your worth. It's because you're a professional, and professionals have to constantly prove their value to whatever organization hires them. Whether this be a company or a school, whatever it happens to be. Now, I understand that you want to think about your fashion. Fine, knock yourself out. Wear whatever you want. Just accept the consequences that comes with that. The consequences that come with these decisions.
Can you guess which part I agreed with and what part I didn't? Well, here's your answer. I agree that in a professional sense, whatever sort of genitalia you have is of no concern, and the way people should look at you should be determined by your own professionalism. What I had a problem with was the I get it, you're worried about your fashion part. Ha! No. The reason she was worried about what to wear was because, unfortunately, your professional wear plays a huge part of how people see you. The style of dress, the colors you wear, the collective aesthetic appeal. Different people are held to different standards with that sort of thing, and Miss Adichie was specifically making note of the standards and expectations placed on her in Nigeria, a place you are unfamiliar with. Oh, and good job making note that you skipped some of the video again, by which I mean you didn't. I agree with most of this point about dressing for professional situations, what is and is not acceptable, and thus have little to say on it. But
About the only thing that you get to accessorize as a guy at the professional level is the color of tie that you wear. And even then, you have guidelines on not wearing ties that are too loud, because they are distracting. In other words, it's drawing attention to you and not the product the company cares to sell.
she was talking about being a teacher, not a salesperson. The professional expectations with regards to appearances are different for different professions. While I'll agree that sparkly lip gloss is not generally something you want to wear in an environment where you would like to be taken seriously, males or females wearing it, there are different expectations for dress for men and women. While I'll also agree that one is generally meant to stay within the boundaries of these expectations, they are different for each gender. Typically, yes, men are stereotyped as wearing overly boring or bland outfits, but women are typically encouraged to present themselves like peacocks, constantly changing into vibrant and appealing colors. Want an example? Fox News.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Kill Meat and Friends, 1-866-408-7669. And guess who just walked in? If you're watching, if you have the podcast, Gretchen Carlson's in. Dressed casual,
Wait a
very
minute.
nice.
Nobody's going to recognize me because not only am I dressed casually, I have on pants.
Well,
Okay?
pants.
Now, pants were not allowed on Fox and Friends, remember?
Yeah, what happened with that?
So I have jeans on, Brian. Welcome,
Wow.
welcome to the new Gretchen.
Well,
The men are all wearing generally casual or bland dress wear. The women are actually encouraged to wear overly short skirts and bright-colored clothes to draw attention to themselves. Hell, if a chick can wear a skirt up that high, why can't one of the men? Figuratively speaking, I mean, this is Fox News after all. If that's not gender inequality, then I don't know what is.
I don't care. I love it. I don't care.
It's one of the reasons that people complain about the crushing corporate drone kind of life. It's monotonous and tedious. It stifles your personal creativity in your own personal kind of way, because no one in the business industry cares about you. Whether you're male or female, you're just there. You're a number on a line, on a ledger, and so long as the numbers you pull in are to the net benefit of the company, and you don't make waves, more power to you.
Women make less money than men for the same fucking job because of their gender. Oh my God.
But the moment that I already went over the tie thing, the loudness. Long and short of it is, blend in, don't stand out. And that doesn't mean be more masculine. It means be more anodyne in what you wear.
But I decided not to.
Good for you.
Instead, I wore a very serious, very manly, and very ugly suit.
Which men have been doing for a long time. Now, what the social fashions will change from time to time, and men will update their suits to one ugly thing to another ugly thing that everyone else seems to think, well, yeah, it's ugly, but we can make do with it. Welcome to being a man, although you're not. And you want to buck that trend, fine. Buck the trend all you want, except the consequences that come with wanting to stand out and not be like everyone else.
Why do you honestly think this entire thing is about standing out? In actuality, feminism is about breaking down the walls that make you stand out. Feminism is about conformity, a conformity to equality. Right now, a lot of people might see a group of people going to a chick flick and notice one of the group members is male. They might assume he's gay because otherwise, why on earth would he want to see a chick flick? Some people might see a group of monster truck rally enthusiasts and one of them is a woman. They might assume that she's the girlfriend of one of the men and she's dragged along and she doesn't actually like what she's going to see. Feminism is supposed to be about breaking down the walls that block people from seeing these other possibilities. The possibility that maybe that man just likes romantic movies, or maybe that woman just likes to see cars get crushed under the wheels of grossly exaggerated vehicles. None of this is about standing out. People already stand out because of their gender. This is about fitting in. It's about everyone being on equal ground. Then they can stand out and shine for whatever they want, but for things that they can actively control.
Because the sad truth is that when it comes to appearance, we start off with men as the standard, as the norm. If a man is getting ready for a business meeting, he doesn't worry about looking too masculine.
No, he worries about not standing out for anything other than the utility served by the function of his job. That's it.
Yes, great. And women worry about appearing too masculine or feminine. This personally is not a problem for me because I don't give a shit about what you think I am or am not. But I've had friends break down and cry because someone referred to them as manly. I've had friends laughed at because they showed up to class for a presentation and weren't taken seriously because they looked too girly. You, as a male, maybe not have to worry about these kind of things, but that's not to say that women don't. Additionally, you are not a woman, so why are you professing to know what women have to deal with or worry about? I don't pretend like I know what it's like to be a guy. Because I don't.
If a man is getting ready for a business meeting, he doesn't worry about looking too masculine and therefore not being taken for granted. If a woman is getting ready for a business meeting, she has to worry about looking too feminine and what it says and whether or not she will be taken for granted, whether or not she will be taken seriously.
No, she doesn't have to worry about that. That is grafting on to the situation provincial concerns. There's a lot of it there that's just superfluous.
If the standards for professional wear lean more on the side of masculine attire, then yes, a woman would have to worry about potentially looking overly feminine. The same could be said if the workplace expected more feminine attire, but until I see an office building full of men in short skirts and blouses, there don't seem to be a lot of examples of the opposite scenario.
She will be taken seriously. I wish I had not worn that ugly suit that day. I've actually banished it from my closet, by the way. Had I then the confidence that I have now to be myself, my students would have benefited even more from my teaching.
Citation needed for that. What is the evidence that if you're more comfortable in your sexuality or femininity or whatever, that you're better able to impart to your students knowledge? I don't know what you teach.
Probably because if you feel more comfortable in your skin or what you're wearing, then you will be more comfortable in your environment and would likely feel more confident. If she feels more comfortable in feminine clothing, then it would make more sense for her to wear it because she'll be more comfortable with herself. I happen to dislike having my ankles or scars exposed. If I'm in an outfit where they are, then I'll feel very uncomfortable and will tend to shrink, shy away, or likely fail to succeed at whatever I'm trying to achieve. I assume that if I put you in a frilly, overly girly dress or a skin-tight bondage outfit, then you'll feel uncomfortable if I plopped you out in the middle of the street. Unless you're into that sort of thing.
I can't recall ever teaching someone a theorem of mathematics or logic or whatever and going, you know what would really make this better for you guys? Is if I wore some clothing that I really, really liked rather than this old boring suit and tie. You would understand this theorem so much. It would be so much more of a profound theorem for you. You would soak up that knowledge so much more readily if only I changed my clothes.
If you feel uncomfortable, if by situation, personal circumstances, attire, etc., then it's likely going to show in your teachings or the way in which you present yourselves, regardless as to whether you realize you're doing this or not. By maximizing one's comfort level, you increase the chances of success. So yes, if you're more comfortable with yourself and your situation, there is a likely chance that your students will pick up on that. People typically respond well to confidence, enthusiasm, and fun environments. If you're comfortable in whatever you're doing, then you're more likely to enjoy doing it, and that passion and enthusiasm will spread. Which is why I do commentaries, because I love them.
Because I would have been more comfortable and more fully and more truly myself.
Oh, looky, I didn't even have to say anything. She answered your question.
No longer be apologetic. I have chosen to no longer be apologetic for my femaleness and for my femininity. And I want to be respected in all of my femaleness because I deserve to be.
There it is, that sense of entitlement, that you deserve something. Fine, you think you deserve this, that, or the other, but it's interesting that in a minute you're going to point out that the things that you deserve aren't things you have to work for. It's things that should be handed to you by men.
People deserve to be respected as human beings. Whether or not you respect them as a person is entirely up to you and how they act around you. But to deny a person simply based on their gender is the problem here. This isn't some righteous crusade of entitlement. This is a woman saying that if one gender can be respected for being that gender, so too should another.
Gender is not an easy conversation to have.
Actually, it generally is a fairly easy conversation to have, but not with feminists, because they graft on a whole bunch of bullshit like you're doing here.
Fly! Fly, my tentacles of hypocrisy! Fly and find the man who would manipulate the audio of a video to cut out the parts where she talks about the hardships of men alongside women based on how they are raised through societal norms and profess that the speaker is exclusively referring to men as the problem of women and should be instruments and actors of their will. Fly! Fly!
For both men and women.
Look at that face! It's like he just realized, shit, I probably should have listened to this whole video through all the way. He literally just said that she's been going on about how males were doing this to females, and then she immediately says that both men and women have problems with gender stuff. Fucking brilliant! I know you already watched this video because you edited the audio bits you wanted together and cut out all the parts where she went on about the hardships of women and men. Now I'm just wondering how you managed to do that without really watching the video.
Bring up gender is sometimes to encounter an almost immediate resistance. I can imagine some people here actually thinking, women too do self. Some of the men here might be thinking, okay, all of this is interesting, but I don't think...
Oh, by the way, just to play a little game with you here, imagine reversing who's giving the speech and talking about, pick any topic you'd like, and then advising women, take a man advising women what they should think, how they should feel, and what their entitlements should be. As a woman, you have the luxury to stand up and say whatever things about a man that you pretty much want to, which, by the way, you have some good things to say. That's abnormal for feminists, but good for you there. And that will be met without much of a problem. Whereas, if a guy gets up on the stage and starts talking about what women should be like, the social expectation that you think is oppressive, what a woman should wear, that kind of thing, they will be roundly excoriated by this worldwide coterie of feminists. I almost said physicists. Well, that would have been silly. You have a privilege to do that no man has.
Oh my goodness, now that really would be an interesting point if it weren't for the fact that that sort of gender double standard is exactly what feminism seeks to get rid of. Also, I'm getting the distinct impression that your version of feminist refers to the blatant extreme feminists, who basically took the term and made everyone think that feminists all want to be superior to men. Yeah, I'm going to tell you flat out that that view of feminism is incorrect. It's not what the movement was originally intended to be, and typical feminists do not generally like to associate themselves with rad femmes. It's like if you're a fan of something, and then there's this small little group in the fandom who's really into that thing that you like, but they're creepily into it, to the point where they tend to look into things way too much, and they see things that aren't there, and they completely distort the basis on which your fan base was formed. You don't like to associate with them, and you know they don't represent the entire group, but people outside of your group notice them more because they stand out more, and they think that what that one little section of the fan base believes is what you all believe. TLDR version, rad femmes are not your everyday feminists. They are extremists. Rad femmes want male inequality. Females want male, female, everyone equality. It's a really simple concept.
It's like that.
Or I should say, no man in the West, and perhaps where you live.
And that is part of the problem, that many men do not actively think about gender or notice gender. It's part of it.
Let me translate. The problem is that not enough men care about what I find important. What's wrong with the rest of the world? Nothing is wrong with the rest of the world that we don't happen to devote our lives to your pet issue. Or to the, prostate cancer. It's kind of important to me. Why is that not the central focus of your life? Too many women don't have that as their central focus. Why not? Because they, no less than men, have other shit in life to worry about than all the things that concern little old me.
Wrong. It's because prostate cancer is not generally a problem that pops up in a woman's life a lot. It's a problem to men because it's something that could occur in their lifetime. You could get up on stage and try to express the severity of prostate cancer and, oh wait, I'm sorry, then you'd be complaining. My bad. I actually disagree that men don't think about gender. I think that because of the way women and men are expected to act and how they are treated, men do think about gender. They just do so differently than women because they are typically treated differently.
The problem of gender. That many men say, like my friend Louis, that everything is fine now. That everything is fine now. And that many men do nothing to change it. If you are a man and you walk into a restaurant with a woman and the waiter greets only you, does it occur to you to ask the waiter, why haven't you greeted her?
does it occur to you to do that for yourself? If I walk into a restaurant, as has happened, and the host or hostess greets someone else in my party, but not me personally, I don't think that I'm being disrespected. I don't think, oh my God, what is this great, colossal injustice that's just been exacted against me? I go, oh, I don't even actually think about it. I can't recall ever having consciously thought, oh my God, someone in my party got greeted and I didn't. It's not a big deal for me. I don't care about it. Similarly, if we walk in and I get greeted and you don't, guess what? I don't care about it just the same. And it's not because you're a woman and I'm a man, and it's not because there's an injustice going on or that I don't care about certain kinds of issues. Well, it actually is that I don't care about that particular issue. It's that you care about it and you expect me to do it too. In other words, the problem here is I have committed the greatest crime that I could, failing to live up to the expectation of what it is you think should be important to me. And it simply isn't. It's not important to me on my own behalf. You should not be surprised that it's not important to me on your behalf.
Remember when she said that men don't think about gender, and I disagreed? Yeah, just gonna tell you flat out, blatantly stating that you don't think or care about that sort of thing essentially proves her point. A point that you got all uppity about. Though I should note that you didn't counter the point, you merely provided an alternative example to pretend that what she was saying made no sense. Also, here's the thing. She is doing something about it, my God! You are doing commentary on a video where she is going out into the world and recanting her story in an effort to have other people notice this and stop it in its tracks. And yes, as a woman, she is in the scenario where she is not addressed by the waiter, and she notices it because of that. The man in her scenario doesn't notice it. That's the problem here. The fault in the situation has to be recognized as wrong before it can be fixed. But in this scenario, 2/3 of the participants do not see any problem with it. I also do not agree with her sentiment that the man should have the waiter take note of his date, because I feel that that takes the power away from the woman. It also somewhat contradicts her earlier note that men are expected to act a certain way, since in this scenario, she's effectively imposing that method of acting on the man. At least you could have pointed out that contradiction, but she didn't!
Curiously, it is important to you on your own behalf, but you insist that it's I who has to do the work for you. No, ma'am. Feminism is an ideology about the entitlement of women to the exclusion of men.
No, just no. That's not what feminism is. Okay, here's a little activity for you all to do. Open up a new tab, go into the search bar, search feminist. Read out a few of the definitions you find. Now go back into the search bar and search radfem, R-A-D-F-E-M, and see what comes up. The kind of feminist that you are talking about is a sub-perspective in feminism. It is not feminism itself. Radfems are to feminists what cloppers are to bronies. I feel like most of the problems with your argument entirely stem from the fact that you think feminists want to rule over all men and sit on their thrones of iron vaginas.
No man, qua man, says, oh my God, I got disrespected. Why aren't women standing up and being up in arms about this?
My fucking God! Go listen to Honey Badger Radio and acquaint yourself with the types of people you just said don't exist.
It's for the same reason that when you suffer the great indignity of not being the person greeted at the party when you walk in, that men don't stand up and think it's a great injustice. Because, as it happens, it actually isn't. Or to the extent that you think it is, you have a voice. I'm told you need to do the work for the issues you care about. Have a great day, madam.
She has a voice? Well, I never would have guessed that, what with the 30-minute long speech. This isn't even the only one she's done. Did you even think when you were saying that, use your mouth? The fucking hell do you think she's been doing this whole time? Oh, well, she's a fan talking out her vagina! People, I get it. Radfems are annoying. They are so annoying. But when you go into a video spouting about the meaning of feminism and what feminism is, then how about not going into it with the knowledge of only one subgroup of feminists that most of the others don't even like? Okay? Okay. There are actually a lot of people nowadays that are fearful of referring to themselves as feminists because they don't want to be seen as rad femmes. They'd much rather refer to themselves as equalists, which is basically the same thing. As for the video, the Justicar, really, genders have problems. All genders, any gender, whatever. Here's the thing. We can go on and on about the social norms and gender expectations and raising kids certain ways and habits and thought patterns integrated into your brain and rape culture. But in the long run, do you really think it's wise to simply shrug off a situation when it's presented to you? Especially when there's evidence to show that it actually is true. Yes, women are treated unequally. They have unequal pay for the same work that men do, and in some places, they have no say over what goes on in their own bodies. That is by definition unequal. Men are also treated unfairly with the expectations of masculinity and what it means to be a man put on them. I'm not saying anyone has to stand up for the integrity of another gender, but don't pretend like the problems aren't there. Also, don't cut out parts of the video that contradict the attitude you're pretending the speaker has towards men, because when you get fact-checked, like what I did, you're the one that looks like the preachy party.